I still remember the day I met Ryan. It was one of those ordinary afternoons that quietly changes the direction of your life without warning. I was sitting alone in a little coffee shop, sketching random shapes on a napkin, waiting for a friend who was, as usual, late. That's when Ryan appeared. He had a calm confidence about him, and when he spoke, it felt like the noise around us faded. He noticed my sketches and smiled. "You draw emotions better than most people express them," he said. I laughed, surprised by his observation. And somehow that simple moment turned into hours of conversation. He was different, easy to talk to. His thoughts felt familiar, as if I'd known him for years. That day became the start of a friendship that felt pure, effortless, and honest. We talked every day about music, books, dreams, fears. I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. And before I knew it, I began to trust him, completely. He became the person I turned to when life got heavy. Whenever something went wrong, he had the right words. He listened when others didn't. It was comforting, almost addictive, that feeling of having someone who understood me so well. But the thing about trust is that it doesn't break all at once. It cracks slowly, while you're too busy admiring the person holding the hammer. Looking back, I can see the signs I ignored. The jokes at my expense that made others laugh while I forced a smile. The moments he took credit for something I'd said or done, brushing it off with, "Relax. We're a team." Little things that felt too small to fight over. Until they weren't. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself this is what friendship looks like, a little teasing here and there. I was wrong. One evening before an art exhibition, I told him I was anxious. It was a big deal for me, my first time presenting my sketches publicly. He comforted me, promised he'd help, said he'd take care of the details. And he did. The event went perfectly. Everyone praised him for organizing it. They called it his vision. My name was barely mentioned. I remember standing there, smiling while my heart sank quietly inside my chest. I wanted to be angry, but instead I made excuses for him. I told myself, maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. But he did. Ryan had a way of making me doubt myself. Whenever I questioned him, he made me feel guilty for even asking. He'd say, "You're overthinking. Again," or "You're too emotional." He made me believe my feelings were the problem. That's how people like him work. They don't take control by force. They make you hand it over, piece by piece, disguised as love, friendship, or loyalty. Still, I stayed, because betrayal doesn't start with hatred. It starts with trust. I shared everything with him, my ideas, my fears, my art. I believed he'd protect it the way I would protect his. But one autumn evening, the truth came quietly, like a whisper I didn't want to hear. I was scrolling through social media when I saw a post from a mutual friend. "So proud of Ryan for launching his art series," it said. I smiled, until I opened it. My smile froze. There they were, my sketches, my exact work. My handwriting, my concepts, my words. He had taken everything we'd ever talked about, everything I had shared, and made it his own. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my chest tighten, refreshing the page again and again, hoping maybe I was mistaken. But there was no mistake. He had stolen my work. The same person I'd trusted with my dreams had turned them into his stepping stones. That night I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in silence. Because sometimes silence is not weakness. It's the sound of something breaking. For days, I said nothing. I watched his interviews, read the comments praising him for his originality. I saw photos of him standing beside my art, smiling, glowing in a tension that wasn't his to claim. The anger I felt wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, cold. I wasn't just hurt. I was disappointed in myself for letting it happen, for ignoring every red flag my heart had raised. When I finally saw him again, he greeted me like nothing had changed. We met at the same cafe where we'd first become friends. I looked at him and saw not the person I'd trusted, but a stranger wearing his face. I told him I'd seen his exhibition. He smirked. "You mean our ideas? Don't be dramatic. You never published them." That sentence cut deeper than any insult could. "Just sketches," he said, as if my work, my soul, was something disposable. That day, I didn't argue. I just walked away. But as I left, I promised myself one thing: I wouldn't fight him with anger. I would fight with truth. So I began quietly collecting proof: every file, every draft, every message where he'd praised my work or asked for my designs. I didn't tell anyone. I waited. Because revenge doesn't always mean destroying someone. Sometimes, it's about letting their lies destroy themselves. A few weeks later, I posted on my art page. No accusations, no names, just a simple thread. Sometimes inspiration isn't borrowed, it's stolen. These are the original sketches behind a series many of you have seen. I attached dates, drafts, screenshots. I didn't have to mention him. People connected the dots themselves. By morning, the post had spread everywhere. Artists began sharing it, comparing images, demanding answers. And then the silence broke. His silence. The same person who once loved the spotlight was now hiding from it. Within days, articles began appearing. Interviews were canceled. His sponsors pulled out. He finally posted a statement saying it was a misunderstanding, that we collaborated. But people had seen enough. The truth spoke louder than his excuses. His empire, built on stolen trust, started to fall apart. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. A few weeks later, I saw him by accident at a small gallery. He looked different, not the confident man I'd known, but someone lost. He saw me and froze. Then he said quietly, "You destroyed me." I smiled faintly. "No, Ryan, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you." He looked at me with tired eyes. "I made mistakes. I was desperate." "Desperation doesn't justify betrayal," I said softly. He didn't answer. We stood there for a moment, surrounded by paintings. It was ironic. Art had brought us together and it had ended us. I looked at him and said, "You didn't just steal my work. You made me doubt my worth." He whispered, "I'm sorry." "Maybe you are," I replied, "but some apologies come too late." Then I turned and walked away, not in anger, but in peace. Because closure doesn't come from hearing sorry. It comes from knowing you no longer need it. Time passed, and I started creating again. At first it was difficult. Every line felt fragile, uncertain. But slowly, the fear faded. My hands steadied. I began drawing for myself again, not for validation. People noticed. My art started gaining attention again, this time for the right reasons. One day, a young artist sent me a message that said, "Your story gave me courage to stand up for myself." That message made me cry. Because that's when I realized I hadn't just exposed a lie. I had reclaimed my voice. Revenge, I learned, doesn't always mean hurting someone. Sometimes, it simply means standing in your truth so strongly that their lies can no longer reach you. If you ask me now what this whole journey taught me, I'd say never hand someone else the power to define your worth. Trust is precious, but it should never silence your voice. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to teach you who not to be. Ryan taught me that even betrayal can be a teacher. It showed me what real strength looks like: not shouting, not fighting, but standing firm in quiet truth. Months later, I walked past the same cafe where it all began. The same sunlight filtered through the glass, the same music played softly. But everything felt different. I ordered my coffee, opened my sketchbook, and began to draw. This time, the lines came easily, free, calm, alive. I thought of Ryan, not with anger, not with sadness, but with acceptance. Some stories don't end in hatred. They end in healing. And maybe that's what my story really was, not the story of betrayal, but of rediscovering myself after it. He played with my trust, but I exposed his dark secret, not through revenge, but through truth. Because in the end, it wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about reminding myself that I was never less than enough.